First thing I'd like to say is you are very, very welcome to Myton. We're delighted to be hosting a May version of the Partnership Plus event on their behalf. It's brilliant that so many people have turned up in the middle of exam season, so really appreciate that. Okay, as far as the event this evening is concerned, it's going to involve a few people. We're delighted to be hosting having Andy here with his obviously inspector's hat on. We've got our teacher Amy Hawkes, and you are going to see a Year 10 geography lesson delivered to a range of different abilities. And there's 24 students who will come in, obviously, in a moment. You're also going to see this afternoon some modelled feedback. You will have noticed or seen that the bill tonight this evening is for developmental conversations. So we're going to try something a little bit different. And for the purposes of this evening, Amy has invited Mark Grady to observe her. I'll talk about the remit in a moment, but Mark, after we've seen the lesson, we are going to talk and we're going to advise him, along with Andy, we're going to advise Mark of some of the things that he might want to say in the feedback that Amy's requested. And then he's going to model some feedback for us. And then we'll be able to look at, and we'll have some summary from Andy about how effective and how helpful or useful the feedback was. There's not going to be a grading at the end. We're not measuring this lesson. So hopefully that won't cause any too much disappointment. Because I know we're quite obsessive about grades, but actually we've been doing a lot of work at school, and I'm sure you have in your schools, about the effectiveness of feedback and what teachers hear in the feedback and what's going to be useful, and picking out the things that are going to make a difference to their teaching. So that's really what Mark's remit is. So what Amy's asked him to do, she's asked him to look very closely at two things essentially. Firstly, the enjoyment factor in the lesson. How stimulated, how engaged are these students? And secondly, perhaps more importantly, are all of these students suitably challenged in order that they can make the progress that they need to make? They're a very mixed bunch. You'll see from the data sheet and from the descriptions that they are quite a mixed ability group. So are they all challenged appropriately? So your task is to have a mooch through some of that paperwork as they're settling, and to make some decisions about how effectively she's differentiating, she's personalising the lesson. We have slipped in there a differentiation sheet that we sometimes use for lesson planning. It is in your pack, so you might just want to underline, or you might want to make notes during the process, and I'm going to invite them in there.
Can you go find your seat, please? Right then, everyone. What you need to do for me, please, is there is a picture on the board, and the question is, how much do you think this area is worth? So a monetary value I would like you to think about, and I want you to give a reason for your decision. You've got a whiteboard and you've got a whiteboard pen. You're going to have 2 minutes to decide. You can discuss amongst yourselves. How much do you think this area is worth, and then give a reason for it. You can have your own opinion, so discuss it first, and then decide your own value. Go on the price, and I would like a reason why you would give it that much money. You've got 2 minutes. Off you go, please. Yeah, everything on there. How much is it worth? So price, an actual number. Let's have a little bit. Yeah. Not going to tell you. How much do you think that land is worth? You've had 1 minute, you've got 1 minute left. That's a very good question. Do you? Well, if you say that it's not a volcano, you say it is. What worth is a volcano?
A lot.
Okay. 100,000.
We thought it had a lot of physical features like mountains, nice.
We've got 30 seconds left. We need a price and a reason why.
Should we say 1.5?
Million? Okay, that's fine.
There's a lot of things and like fuels and stuff.
There's nothing there.
It has like a lot of potential to be built.
2.5, we give 2.5 million.
1.5.
I go,
Million, 900,000. Got 10 seconds left. Everybody's going to need to show these. We need some decisions. 100,000, 250,000.
More dangerous.
250,000.
Like there's 40 fertilised soils that might be more expensive.
No, not dollars. Good, you could have a tractor. What's your price? 20 million. Capital letters are very British. You're going to decide. Right then, everybody, can you please stop talking? Can you turn yourself around and look this way? You need to hold up your board so I can see a price and obviously a reason why. Okay, quick. So we've got 25 million going on here, 900,000, but 3.2 million, no billion. Okay, fair enough from Kieran. 100 and what are we going with, Ray?
Sorry, 120 million.
120 million from here, 100,000. You're selling this cheap, it's like a reverse auction. 150,000 because it's a volcano. Okay. 5 million all on this table. Hannah, can you give me a reason, please, for your £150,000 value?
well, it's near a volcano, so the cost would be lower because.
How do you know it's near a volcano?
Well, I kind of assumed because there was smoke and I couldn't really see properly, but I'm hoping that it's a volcano.
Okay. Go with it, it's fine.
So the cost would be lower because it's like close to an incident base. But then it's like possibly got fertilised soil, so it might be more expensive.
So you're imagining, like when we went to Iceland, that it is a volcano, higher land value because of that. I like it. Amy, what do you reckon?
It has a lot of potential because obviously there's not much around it. Then it would be quite expensive because it's got like physical features like we don't know, but it looks like a mountain or something. So it could be quite expensive because it's reserved as well. So
when you say it's got potential, what do you mean?
things could be built upon it, so like buildings and stuff.
So you're going to add value to that by building houses on it. Fair enough. Kieran?
Resources could be got up a mountain.
Such as?
Coal, iron, rock.
So what's that going to do?
So the country can sell on resources to improve the economy.
So it's got potential value for the future if you're going to use all of those resources. Philip?
So I said it'd be pretty cheap because it looks like it's like pretty remote.
Yeah.
There's nothing around there. The climate looks pretty bad, it's snow, and you wouldn't exactly go there on holiday, would you? So
But you've lived in Greece for most of your life.
Still, people go on holiday in Greece, but don't think they'll go there.
Okay.
And if that really is a volcano, you wouldn't want to ski there. So I'm thinking
I've
it's
skied on a
probably quite
volcano,
cheap.
sort of. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you. Carry on.
So yeah, I'm thinking it's probably pretty cheap because, well, we wouldn't really want to live there.
Okay. You might not want to live there, in your opinion.
That is my opinion.
Go on. Yeah,
If
Aaron.
you were clever and it actually was a volcano, you could build a geothermal power station.
That's a very good idea.
Yeah.
That's one friend.
Well,
Yeah.
basically, I was going to basically say what Ammon was
Yeah.
saying about the geothermal, that it could offer a lot of potential energy for the nation and local area. However, due to it being in a Arctic tundra, it doesn't have very fertile soil,
Yeah.
and therefore wouldn't offer much agriculture, so therefore it wouldn't make much money in terms of that.
Okay.
But again, it could make much in geothermal and again in tourism due to the scenery.
So you're saying it's Arctic tundra, we've got it's a volcano, we don't want to go to the volcano, or it's a mountain. We're going to it's a mountain. Volcano, Arctic tundra. Ray, you've had your hand up for all three of them, which one are you going to do?
Well, it could potentially be both a volcano and a mountain,
Yeah.
because they are very similar, and both volcanoes can be created through mountains.
Yeah, good. So, I'm going to give you some information. It is a mountain. It's in the Lake District, which we've looked at as a... thank you, Philip, which we've looked at as a case study, and it's called Blencathra. It's an area of land that is going to be sold. Now, I want to know from you today, in what we're going to be looking at, should we put a price on our environment? Now, you already have, and you made judgments about how much you think it's worth. What I would like us to look at is why people sometimes need to buy or sell land, but also really importantly, Sean, is you're just watching me up there. You need to put your ideas forward and develop your points. It's all well and good you all having your own views, but you've got to be able to take that further. Your view's great, but we need to have some balance. So, on the post-it note, the big post-it note you've got on your desk, what I would like to do is, on your big post-it note, I want you to write down your feelings about whether it is right to buy and sell land. I'm not going to give you any more information about this area of land to start off with. Please don't write on them with the whiteboard pens. So, you need to put your view a point forward, please. Elizabeth, what we're going to need to make sure in our answers? Yeah, explain your points properly. What else will we need to do, Sean?
Use key terms.
Use key terms. So make sure you're developing your ideas. Callum, what else?
Case studies.
Could possibly use a case study. Do you know a case study at the moment? No. So we're going to add that part in a minute. You're going to have 3 minutes to write down, do you think it is right to buy or sell our environment? I'm not going to give you any more clues. You can talk to each other because the silence will be painful. Off you go, please.
Because if you didn't put a price on things, people would assume regardlessly they would probably care of it. They would be appreciated. They would appreciate land.
Let's say if it's like 1.5 million or something like that.
Yeah.
You're only going to get people who can actually afford to buy it, invest
they'll use it in a better way,
and trying to actually make some kind of profit.
Yeah.
But they could be on
Add something into the multiplier effect.
Yeah.
Other than like.
Yeah.
But their intention is otherwise part of the business would be able to.
Yeah. Like some areas in danger could use it to
Maybe they should kind of, they were like, actually buy, say a plot of land, then kind of...
Well, actually, I'm thinking when, like...
Okay, if someone to put a price on land for its nature, and the quality of development will depend on the quality of the natural resource itself.
I'm sure them boys would
That would be unsuitable for most of the big industries' uses.
You want to attract people, you can't just,
Yeah, but
if you buy land and just put loads of houses and stuff there, it won't attract tourists.
My idea was
wrong.
that play.
We can't say his idea's wrong. That's not a definite way of putting an argument forward, is it? Yeah, go on then, Philip.
What I was thinking is that areas that are really expensive to buy, that's probably because it'll be more people will be able to use for more purposes.
Yeah.
Therefore, the government can sell it for more to get more money off that. And
What happens if it's not the government that's selling it?
then the person again will be able to sell it for more because the place will be more desirable for certain activities.
But you don't think it's desirable?
That place isn't. Therefore, they can sell that for cheap because no one really wants it anyway.
So in your opinion, that land isn't valuable because you don't like it? Okay, keep going then. You've got 1 minute left. Callum, what do you reckon?
Not too.
Do you think it's right that someone should be able to buy or sell it?
Yeah.
Why?
Because if they just give it away for free, that they could use. No, because it's not like it. I don't know.
So at the moment you're undecided?
Yeah.
That's fine then.
If you think like some people would want to buy the land so that they can develop on it so they can create income, but then again you might just want to use the natural resource itself to create a profit.
Yes. That's a very good point. Yeah.
Are dump owners real people?
A what?
Dump owners real people?
Dump owners?
Yeah, they could like own tips.
Yeah.
So they bought to be about things.
Yeah.
There you go. Is it dump owner again?
No, not a specialist key term. Landfill site owner, that would be much better. Yeah, definitely. Right then, everyone. Can you please finish the point you have made? And I would like to stick it on your desk and keep it in front of you, please. And I'm going to ask you very quickly about some of the ideas. At the moment, Amy, Whose opinion have you got on that piece of paper? Yours and your tables. Is that enough in an answer in geography to build up a good argument just to have your view?
No.
Why not?
Because you need balance views and you need some facts to sort of boost your own opinion and to get, you know, the other side of the story as well.
Yeah, it's going to be important to have the other side of the story. It's a very good point, Lucy.
And also, like, if you just have your own view constantly, it's quite biased as well as an opinion.
Yeah, in life you've got to have listen to other people's viewpoints, but also you've got to also make sure that you're going to back it up with some evidence, and that's what we're going to build on. You don't know about what's happening with this mountain, but you develop those ideas. Can you turn around to me and make sure you're looking this way? Sean in particular, you're not having a left view. I know you are, but there. So, what that mountain that we just looked at is a mountain called Blencaster, and it's up for sale. It is up for sale for £1.75 million. Now, the person who's selling it is selling it because he has a massive tax bill. His dad died in 2006 and left a £9 million tax bill. He has sold everything else of any worth that he has, so his paintings have gone, all other things. He's very wealthy, so we're not just talking things we got from IKEA, like properly expensive stuff. And so he's only got his mountain left, and he's got to make a decision as to whether he's going to sell that. It's gone up for sale. Now we need to build from having your own opinion to be able to see the viewpoints of other people. On your desk you've got 4 different, or in your case you're just going to have to pick, 4 different pieces of paper. They have your name on the front of them. You need to find one each and then look this way, please. We've got one. So what you're going to need to do is, as it says on the board, for each piece of evidence that you've got, you're going to need to read it first, then you're going to need to underline the key points that you think could add to your argument, that could back it up. Like Amy says, provide some evidence. Phoebe, why is it important to have so much evidence? So that you're not just like basing on an argument. Yeah, why is that important then? So then it's like more accurate. Yeah, we've got to have some accuracy, we've got to have some evidence. So we move from dump owner to landfill site owner with one easy move. So, you need to read first. Read all the information and then be prepared to share your best piece of evidence with me when we've had some time to read it through. You can underline them on your sheets, that's fine. So you can underline the keywords and the things that you think are important. Discuss them with your table. I'm going to speak to you again in about 4 minutes. Off you go, please. Yeah, you will be a scribe in a minute. Do your own thing first.
It's 2,677 acres.
Yeah, so large area of land. What do you get with it in your sale, Callum?
Is it a 9 million tax bill?
So he had the tax bill and he's got to pay that tax bill off, and so he's not got anything left to be able to do that.
If it's 9 million,
yeah,
it really is right. Because he's only going to get like what?
He's sold everything else that he has available to him.
What happens after that?
Well, it's not loose change, is it?
No, I mean like.
I imagine he can pay it off instead.
I feel like I.
Do you? You send some money and you can buy it. And he's concerned that he wants to keep farming in the local area. So he's not an awful person who just goes, do you know what, I don't care about these people. He wants to be able to keep the area going. So that would say, is it alright to buy and sell our environment? When you said before, well, it depends, you could say, well, yeah, it is alright because he's going to sell it responsibly to somebody else. He's not just going to see what he can get on the open market. So have a look. Lucy, who else is going to try and grab it? Okay. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, so a bit like on the present night, you're trying to buy around. seconds, you're going to have the point that you're going to share with me. So what was the most important piece of evidence you could now put to your argument? You're going to have to discuss it with your table quickly. What's the most important thing? What do you reckon, Chris? Have your argument.
What's yours?
Oh, it's on about how it would be obtained raising rights, like loads of animals.
Rather than positive or negative? Yeah.
Positive or negative.
Who owns the sorry, why is land protected?
Can't the local people in the council like, start to raise money?
It's basically land wondering.
Kieran, your table, what's the most important piece of evidence?
Environmental.
Right, what about environmentalists?
They think it shouldn't be sold because it can be put towards bad industrial use and destroying the landscape and areas around it.
Good, so you can put that towards your argument. So you've gone from just yours to now being able to provide some evidence. Dan, what do you reckon your table's most important piece of evidence is?
It would be that maybe Amy's that means that they have to take care of it and not just sort of just buy it for the sake of buying it.
Who's going to protect that land, Dan?
The local council and the local people around it.
And something bigger that we've studied, someone else. An authority, Sam.
Well, the government.
Yeah, and the National Park Authority. They're going to protect it. Lydia, what do you reckon? What's your most important piece of evidence?
Maybe that like the residents and everything, it's like their way of life because they've lived there for so long, and if they can't, it kind of destroys their living.
So you're going to say that's a reason we shouldn't sell it because it's on people's livelihoods. Elizabeth, your table, what's the most important piece of evidence? Yeah? So what to take that a bit further? So the bill's 9 million, he's selling it for 1.75. What's the issue?
Well, it's not being sold for enough.
Yeah, so you think that it's not sold for enough? It's sold for 20p. So it's a bit different. Amy?
I think they should raise the price of the property because then I think people would have to really think about if they want that or not, because if they're just buying it for quite a cheap price, they won't consider the community, and if they raise the price then maybe they'll get someone that actually really wants to take care of it.
So only responsible people would pay a lot of money?
Yeah.
Tom, what do you reckon? Why? Yeah. Yeah. So she was so taken by it when she was 11 that she wanted to move up to the Lake District from London to then be close to that. So it might be taking away her right to then use the land. What about you, Emma? What's the most important piece of evidence?
The local owner in good order, so they don't want it to like get ruined.
Yeah. Why would they be so interested in keeping it in good order? Anyone else on your table think why might they be interested in their own environment?
They don't want to end up living somewhere where they live. They're used to living in a really nice or clean environment. They don't want to end up living where it's not very nice, where it's full of people that they don't want around, and not people that want to change.
So they're NIMBYs. They're not in my backyard person. Okay, we'll take them into consideration. Philip, very quickly.
Miss, I was going to say that on my sheet, the person said that somebody who wants to pass on to future generations and really cares about it and want to buy it. But the problem is, because you get the title killed.
Yeah, that'll do.
Yeah. And like the fact that it's an actual like big mountain, it's not just like a farm like it says under there, which someone says you bought a farm. Oh, cool, nice farm.
But you've now got a title.
It's an actual big mountain.
Do you think the value's now gone up because you get a mountain and a title?
Well, no, because it's still in the middle of nowhere and it's not really that good.
It's still not Greece and we're not paying good value to it. So,
my point was though,
go on then.
yes, he wants someone that really want to take care of and pass on to future generations, but the scenery and the title and all that doesn't really it will attract people that are more into their own image than the actual.
In your opinion?
In my opinion.
Okay, so we need to move, I'll come back with you in a second, mate. We need to move from your opinion now, with the evidence, to being able to see a whole continuum of ideas. You've got this on your desk, and the lucky person who's going to be described has scribe written on their piece of paper. So they are already chosen. Mainly people we can read the writing of. So, we're going to have a yes and a no. Is it right to put a price on nature? Hannah, when we're doing this, showing our best possible answers, why do we have to have a whole range of ideas?
Because if you're a 6-mark question, you need to have both sides of it.
And for in life, not just our 6-mark questions, you see? Why do you have to be able to be aware of other people's points of view?
Because it is fine to just have your own.
Pardon?
It is fine to just have your own.
Yeah. Really biased just to have your own opinion on everything. So, there we go, smile. Got the smile. So, the person who's described is now going to put a range of evidence onto their continuum line. So, if you think, no, we shouldn't be buying and selling nature, it's going to go here. Sean, can you give me an example of why we shouldn't be buying nature? I'd love it if you listened better.
I do listen.
Do you?
Yeah.
Go on then. Okay, you forgot. So, we've got your attention now though. So on this side you're going to put points and you can go all the way along this, but the scribe is going to be in charge. I want you to put the initial of the person who's saying something. Why were we going to do that? The initial of the person who said something. No. Okay, why would you do it, Philip?
To show that it's like different people's opinions, we're not all just ours and we just ignore what everyone else says.
Good. A bit of balance, because we've got to go from your opinion to be able to provide some evidence. You now need to work in your teams. You need to consider your argument carefully. Off you go, please. Alright then, Ray, what's your point going to That's fine. You get ready to say what I was going to say. But say something more than that. One word answer What's your point to be then, Sean? And Callum?
The reason for it shouldn't be is people could use it for use.
So people shouldn't sell the Mountain of Blencathra because it could be used for drug use.
Yes.
Okay.
They could like
Why?
weed farms.
Do you really want me to write it down?
What do you reckon, Callum?
I think it should be sold because people just use it just for a fun. They might be looking to get a good like landscape.
So some people will leave it exactly how it is. They don't have to destroy it. So we've got some comments already. Good morning to yes, it's all right. Lucy, what's your point?
You are able to buy, and if you want to, but I think maybe kind of, as we said before, like submitting some kind of application of your intentions of actually what you want to do.
What happens if they lie in their application for buying a
Yeah,
mountain?
that was
Yeah. If you're going to go to the land registry, then you're going to have to think about how you're going to control it. Think about how many times people promise to do something and they don't. We don't need to be cynical about it. We've got to be realistic. I think, yes, it's okay to sell but why? Why do you think that's
He wants to keep the public low level.
Yeah, so I would argue with Georgiana as well that it's absolutely fine because he's going to try and keep it in the local area. He's not selling it off to any old person and he wants to give it one area.
That's why they are. Why they are.
Right then, Tom, where's your opinion on selling off the heritage, which could cause problems between locals and potential buyers? So locals and potential buyers, what they're going to be stakeholders. Good, get that down as a key term. So stakeholders are going to be involved. What's it going to lead to? Yeah, what's what you would see that you would need to? Yeah. Philip, how will we go? Lovely, thank you. You have a proposal. This sounds serious. Why?
No, I think it's got some good ideas.
If you pass it down to people farming in the local area, what if you pass it down to non-responsible owners?
That's a very good point.
And non-responsible owners are willing to pay.
How would you put that in an answer? Which is good. If you said it's good.
On the other
Lovely.
This isn't in the UK. Oh, Jack.
It is in the UK. The local
Jack.
This is in the UK.
Yes.
Makes money with SEO. Which is good.
Yeah.
You've got 1 minute left.
Everyone, no, not just the local.
The local
around the world.
Cost it out.
Frey, you need to say something. I can go with it.
Yeah.
FM.
Bombard us with information.
Yeah.
Just from buying that land.
And like their livelihood and stuff. Exactly. They just like farm off that land. Even though it's mountain.
Yeah.
Using it as an example.
You can farm off it, it's just
Yeah, like, you know what I meant, like if it was just flat land.
yeah.
Currently, everybody, I would like you please to stop. I'm going to turn yourself around. Sorry, Anne. I'd like to put your feet down, please. You've got a range of views. Can you please hold up your sheet just so I can see how far your opinions now stretch? You are still completely no and yes, no parts in the middle.
Yeah.
Okay. No. You've now got a whole range of different ideas. Yours are all now, I'll just hold this up, yours are all showing that they could be in yes, but the arrow is to no still. Still one-sided. Amen? Got nothing in the no, particularly. Okay. Got a massive range of different ideas at the back, a whole spread of them, and Sam, we've got a lot in the middle. Now, we've built on our ideas as we've gone through. What we now need to do is really quickly return to the answer you wrote on your post-it note. Have a look at it for me, please. Get your feet off the chair. What are our teachers watching? So, have a look at your opinion that you started off with at the beginning of the lesson. And because this is just rough, I'd like you to cross out bits that you now don't agree with, add in evidence where it's needed, and show the other side of the argument. Put your hand up, you can tell me how you're going to show the other side of the argument. 2 or 3 people. Someone on that table already told me. What are we going to use, Ray?
Well, you're basically going to contradict your own arguments.
How are we going to do that?
So basically, create the exact opposite views to your own one. So basically, if you put a opinion for the environment, saying that they should be preserved due to them already making a lot of money for the local area, you could maybe say, well, maybe they provide a lot of ores and minerals, or maybe a lot of land area due to the...
How are we going to physically join 2 ideas? And what are they called? Thank you very much. On your desk you have a sheet. It's, you need to turn it over. They're a sheet of connectives. What? Wow. Can you please look at... You're not listening anymore. Can you please have a look at your connectives and think how you can change your answer? How can you develop it from where we were at the start? Now you know a lot more information there than there. It's not that graph. I don't know what that is. You're going to need to be prepared to share your ideas with other people. Put your hand up before we get started, Amy. Put your hand up if you fully understand what I've asked you to do. Ammon, repeat back to me what the instructions were that are written on the board.
Read your answer from the start of the lesson.
Yeah.
Underline what changes you would now make to improve the answer.
Yeah.
Be prepared to share these ideas with the class.
Lovely. Change what you have written. Put in other ideas. 5 minutes. Off you go, please.
Yes, I am very bad human being.
You're not a very bad human being. That's massively extreme.
No. No, because now that I have accepted and embraced the opinions of my fellow students,
Yeah.
I
I can now build upon my original idea. It's completely wrong.
It's not completely wrong, it's just your view, and you've got to have some balance.
I had an epiphany.
You've had an epiphany.
Amy, I'm going to interrupt you there.
Please do.
Thank you very much indeed. Ladies and gentlemen, big round of applause for
Nothing is unacceptable.
Okay.
Right, you're going to believe that one.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to give you just 3 or 4 minutes with people surrounding you for a bit of a pause and to collect your thoughts. What we've actually seen is an experience. In actual fact, we've seen quite a few episodes in a learning journey, and that's all we're ever going to see when we look at snapshots of learning. If we're going to really, as Helen was saying earlier on, make judgments about teachers' capabilities, individual teachers' capabilities, we really do need 360 degrees triangulation, don't we? And a whole lot of other evidence from children's work over time, children's progress information over time, because these snapshots are only going to give us really high quality information about the quality of the learning experiences. And that's what we're going to talk about tonight, isn't it? The quality of 23 learners' experiences, because in a second, when we just consider once again the nature of the group, we've got a pretty comprehensive group here in terms of abilities, capacities, competencies, and needs. So just 3 or 4 minutes just to collect your thoughts in terms of going back to what Helen said earlier on. What have we got here in terms of, in 30 minutes, children's buy-in? Have we got a set of motivated young people here? Have we got a set of interested young people here? Have we got a set of young people here who are being challenged appropriately? Because it doesn't matter what the pedagogy is, if we've got those 2 elements, if we've got interest and we've got challenge, we're probably 95% likely to have successful learning. 3 or 4 minutes, and then let's collect some thoughts about the extent to which everybody's been engaged and challenged. Time to interrupt conversations, but let's move the agenda on. We're going to just spend about 10-15 minutes, absolutely maximum, just focusing on what Amy has requested in terms of her professional coach Mark to share with her in terms of, I guess, 1, hooking, 2, sustaining interest, curiosity, motivation, and secondly, thirdly, challenging suitably throughout quite a disparate group, because 23 learners here, and I don't know if you've had a chance to look at the data in detail, but we've certainly got 8. That's a third of the group, high attainers, real high attainers, projected for at least A's at the end of the course. We've certainly got a good sort of 4 or 5 C grade students. We've got a D grade student with additional needs. We've got a very bright student with significant additional needs, and we've got 2 pupil premium students who, generally speaking, one's a high attainer and one's sort of a middle of the range attainer. It's a pretty comprehensive group, and my focus has been throughout on the evenness in terms of challenge, the appropriateness in terms of challenge, and that appropriateness, the curiosity, the stimulation, so that do we get any buy-out at any point because it's inaccessible or it's too comfortable, or do we get any buy-out because we're losing the interest? Because once we start getting buy-out, then progress is hindered immediately, isn't it? And potentially prevented, depending on how long that buy-out lasts. So let's just consider those elements. We're not here to say she should have done this better, or that would have engaged them more, or that would have challenged them more.
It's just to look at the 6 or 7 episodes in this learning experience. And we start off, don't we, ladies and gentlemen, with really a look at the groupings, I think. Because I think the groupings are interesting. And again, don't know how much you've picked up in terms of the groupings. Certainly this is a very high attaining group, and it'll be interesting to think about in a second or two how they motored. By and large, when we think about the pupil premium children, particularly the one that's the lower of the two attainers, when we think about the 2 DSE-N pupils, remember one's a high attainer and one is a lowish attainer, and when we think about the 5 C grade students, if you worked it out on your seating plans, they're fairly dispersed. And certainly what is pretty common on every table, remember this is the real high one, is we've got at least 1 A grade student, if not 2 A grade students on each table. Not holding this up as the strategy par excellence in terms of hooking and motivating and challenging, but it's obviously what I guess Amy has set out purposely, we'll see in the feedback, in the coaching feedback, perhaps as a strategy to ensure that our A grade students are perhaps bringing on their colleagues. The big question is going to be, of course, to what extent are our A grade students challenged sufficiently. So that was the first thing that just caught my eye, just in terms of how the groups are being set up. Let's see how you think they interrelate by and large in the half a dozen episodes that follow. I mean, the first episode, remember, is the picture, and we invite talk right from the word go, 2-3 minutes. Anything in particular in that 2 or 3 minutes talk that you looked at, that you thought might have been effective, or for that matter, ineffective, in terms of hooking and in terms of meeting need? Anything particular in that opening little start to learn? Yeah.
I think they talk about opinion more, so everyone can access it, rather than tell me facts about it.
Yeah, well, that's a very interesting point. I mean, she was at pains throughout, wasn't she, to suggest that that's just your opinion, etc. But yes, I mean, initially, there's no right or wrongs, is there? It's a pretty accessible, open-ended start to learning. Yeah, okay, interesting point, yeah. Anything else, ladies and gentlemen, just in that sort of start to learning that's here to, hook, invite, challenge at the same time, but provide access, yeah. Yeah. Fine, very little teacher talk, okay, it might well or might not hook the lower attainers or the special needs children, yeah, some might take that talk, yeah, anything else? Yeah.
I think she's really good at avoiding answering their questions, so it really heightened their curiosity and their inquisitiveness for later on in the lesson as well. Okay, okay. Interesting to see where she went, and at one part, we've got to talk about, we've got another adult as well. We've got another adult. Mark came in on a couple of occasions. Interesting to see where Mark went, but it's interesting for me that the first port of call when she invited them to talk was this area over here, and this area over here in particular is where we had a very bright but needy student, a pupil premium student and 2 C students, possibly one of the neediest tables, just to make sure, I guess, that they were clear about the instruction and that they've got off to a positive start. Interesting that our additional adult, in terms of 2 interactions, just in that first 2 or 3 minutes, was with a C grade student and the other DSEN student. And again, I don't know, I'm assuming that's strategic in terms of just making sure that they're comfortable, that they're clear. But in general, not a great deal of, differentiation in inverted commas that can't take place in any lesson there. But certainly I thought the quality of the interactions as I went round, very difficult for you obviously to hear. You can only pick up body language in terms of eyes, facial expressions, to see whether there's that evenness of interaction. But I didn't think it was a pretty bad start to getting into this topic. I thought we'd generally got an evenness of discussion,
And obviously, I'm looking, because we seem to have some strategic high attainers placed, whether they're going to monopolise discussion or whether they're going to, you know, be real orchestrators of discussion. I thought in that first 2 or 3 minutes he was pretty positive. Anybody else like to say anything else about that sort of opening start to learning in terms of hooking and challenging and providing access for, you know, all of our learners? Yeah.
I think the image was really important.
Go on.
It was something that we could all access, but there was also enough ambiguity there to create the discussion.
Yeah, that's a really good point, particularly for our high teens. You know, because we want them to go deep as well. Yeah, and we might think about some of the contributions of our high attainers in a minute or two to the feedback that we heard. Okay, let's move on, ladies and gentlemen, because we want to hear about how the coaching goes. The follow-up questioning was interesting. Just 2 or 3 minutes again. I mean, I've actually noted down here, because I'm focusing now heavily on interactions, who's leading that feedback, who Amy invites to start the feedback, provide a tone, I guess, to the learning experience. But more of what I think in a second. Any points you want to raise in terms of just that 2 or 3 minutes follow-up feedback in terms of the questions and the selection of the students? Well, yeah.
I think one of the pupils made a comment about geothermal.
Yep.
Developing
right.
onto a more advanced topic.
Yep.
And actually it was another pupil who extended him, I think it was Ray,
yep.
who took on his point.
Yep. Yes.
So it was good to see there was that extension between them. It could have been
starting to knit together across the room. Yeah.
I think perhaps it could have been more explicitly teased out between.
Possibly. I mean, it's largely the high attainers that are getting these questions. It's largely the high attainers. 1, 2, 3, 4. I think 6 questions out there. Certainly 1, 2, 3, 4 high attainers, a B grade student and a C grade student. That again might be strategic. That again might be strategic in terms of let's get the these are the confident learners. Let's get them, you know, breaking the ice. Let's get them setting the scene for the others. I've just noted it because I'm going to look to see if that's a leitmotif throughout, that we're only asking the high attainers, or you know, they're setting the scene, they're breaking the ice. They're showing the others that, you know, they're modelling, I guess, good responses, like you've just mentioned. And the nature of the question, I thought, for those particular students, was pretty open-ended. And there were some follow-up questions coming in at the side as well. And I thought that was pretty challenging for them. But we'll talk about the nature of the questioning perhaps as we go through. The next phase was the post-its, you know, that opportunity for them to think about their own opinions at this point. Again, 3 or 4 minutes here. We got Mark coming in from the side as an additional adult, talk about where he targeted himself in a moment, or where strategically teacher and he had decided he'd be targeted. I'm particularly keen to see the nature, of course, of the discussions again, but I'm following the teaching. I'm following the teacher. I want to see where she's going, whether it's just a general walk around, or whether we're making a beeline for specific tables, specific students. Any comments, ladies and gentlemen, in terms of, again, anything you noted from that post-it episode? Yeah?
I thought there was one really interesting moment. The camera picked it up. There was a student who tried to tackle the task. I think, I don't quite know what the ability was down on this table, and didn't know quite how to structure that argument. And I felt that some of the students perhaps were okay with that idea, because it became a moral question at that point, hadn't it? We moved on from valuing to, is it right to value? And some of the students, particularly the lower ability students, seemed to struggle with that concept. So I think it challenged the top end, but I think at that point it was quite difficult for some of them to be able to access that moral argument. So the groupings were helpful because some of the high attainers were helping with that, but it wasn't perhaps scaffolded quite enough for all.
Okay. I mean, take your point there. I think in terms of the general, you know, what the post-its have recorded, there's a reasonable level even for our sort of lowest attainers, but our lowest attainers are C's. But quite right to point out if you've noticed a particular group there. But I think as a whole across the piece, I think I take your other point that I think the high attainers again weren't dominating, but were possibly opening up and providing the access, yeah. Interesting, just to whet your appetites, ladies and gentlemen, I mean, the first table this time, teaching went to this table over here. Remember, these are the higher tables. She spent quite a long time here and dropped quite a few grenades in here, I thought, in terms of, you know, think about, make sure, etc. So I thought she left them with a fair amount, only about 20 seconds, 30 seconds of additionality sort of to think about. And then the next 3 children that were targeted on a one-to-one basis, only briefly, 20, 30 seconds, was a C grade student, a pupil premium grade student, and the special needs, in inverted commas, additional needs rather, student, who is a C grade student, sorry, D grade student as well, C grade student as well. The additional adult, interestingly, targeted 2 of the lowest students, attaining students in the room, including 1 pupil premium. And again, don't know whether that, I'm assuming that might well be, you know, a strategy, just to make sure again that we've got clarity, we've got accessibility, and in particular, our highest attaining group are sort of thinking outside the box even at that early stage. Anything else to add, ladies and gentlemen, about that just general post-it section? Opportunity, it's open-ended, isn't it? Everybody can put exactly what they feel. It's back to the gentleman's point about, you know, you can't be wrong here. It's not fact. It's not. It's open-ended at this early stage. We want to encourage buying. We want to encourage access. We want to encourage a no failure ethos. Yeah.
The whiteboard we use and the post-it notes.
Yes.
Actually encourages that because you're not putting it in your book. It's not your new work. It's okay to get it wrong because you know it's not going to be posterity.
Yeah, I think that's a very good point. We use whiteboards a lot, don't we, ladies and gentlemen? We know that how that can provide open minds, particularly for some less confident young people, because it's they can wipe it off. It's not going to be there for posterity. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, let's move on to the source sheets, because we got 4 source sheets. They're different sources. 3 or 4 minutes to consider them, to annotate, to underline. And let's link together opportunities for a bit of discussion as well, and some follow-up questioning before we move on to the final opinion line, and an opportunity to revisit those initial post-its. The source sheets, a good sort of 5-6 minutes here. It's a major part of the learning experience, with opportunities for discussion. Again, any points that you want to raise in terms of what you're seeing. Have we still got sustained interest around the room? Have we still got learners who look through their body language, through their facial expressions, that they're being suitably challenged? Or have we got those clear indicators, you know, that there's something better to do, or we're beginning to lose interest? What did you reckon? What did we think? Yeah?
There's a personalisation of the sheets because they have the names on, so they're targeting that sort of literacy, that engagement.
It's difficult to tell. I'm wondering the same thing. We've got colouring, obviously. I'm looking to see whether the yellow sheets are a little bit the spacing out of the words, you know, the actual ideas, the concepts, the actual language. I feel, if anything, is probably slightly more accessible than the other sheets. The vast majority of the yellows have gone to what we might call, not entirely, but the lower sort of end of the population. So there may well be, but you know, we need to look at it in more detail, but there may well be a little bit of a polarisation there. Couldn't see much difference in terms of the readability, the reading accessibility, and the challenge in the other sheet. Pretty general. Yeah, anything thinking about the interactions of the teaching, ladies and gentlemen, at this point? We've not got massive overt differentiation here. Have we got buy-in? Have we got challenge? What are we thinking? Can we notice any particular groups who seem inactive or who seem disinterested? Yeah?
I think they all really clear on what they need to do. So
Yeah.
they had the instructions on the board, but then had the key vocabulary aligned in the instructions for reference back.
Yeah.
So as soon as she set them off, they were straight away doing it because they were clear they were going to have to share with the others in a few moments.
Yeah.
I think that was sort of really good
Yeah.
at motivating them because they knew they were going to be accountable to the rest of the group.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think it was obvious as well they're used to doing those sort of tasks.
There's a rule. Yeah, I think that's a really good point. There's a typicality, I think, about a lot of this. Nothing's phasing them about where they're sitting, nothing's phasing them about potential interactions. You know, we might well have a C grade student next to an A, or a special needs sitting opposite an A. There's not a lot of polarisation here. There's a real equality, I think, developing here. I thought there was an evenness in discussion. I'm not seeing any dominated high attaining groups. This particular group got visited again in order to just, again, pop some very open-ended questions, think about this. But in general, no, I think perhaps that yellow sheet is just supporting some of our lowest attainers in terms of, you know, the nature of the challenge. But I think we've still got sustained buy-in, and I think we've got still a fair degree of challenge and a fair degree of contribution across the room here, underpinned by one or two judicious visits, not many at this point, but certainly group dynamics. What about the follow-up questioning? Let me just feed back to you the follow-up questioning here, because remember, one of those first major follow-up Q&A sessions had a lot of Ha's featuring. This I thought was really interesting because I've put here 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 questions asked at this point. 9 questions to follow up what's emerging as key ideas from the source materials. And of those 9 questions, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 of them went to either DSEN in inverted commas or grade C students. And I couldn't tell really at that point much of a different response in terms of sophistication, in terms of depth, from the first lot of responses. I thought there was a pretty measured set of responses coming at that point. We did have a couple of 1A and a B answering, but largely now we've got a real confidence, I think, emerging across the room from students of different abilities. Finally, the opinion line, ladies and gentlemen. What did we pick up with the opinion line? We've got scribes. Interesting, I don't know if you worked out who the scribes were, but we've got scribes, yeah, we do have some visits from the teacher. Any points that you'd want to raise again in terms of motivation, in terms of interest, in terms of challenge, because we're coming up now to a good 30 minutes of learning time. Have we lost the motivation? Have we lost the interest? Anything that you want to comment here in terms, again, about, you know, invitation and about challenge? Yeah.
I thought it was really good personally because it was like solidifying their answers. It wasn't saying what they thought and why.
Right.
But then sort of arguing against their peers and
right.
actually really backing up their answers.
Right. Anything in particular that's happening here in terms of structure, strategy, to make sure that our DSENs, to make sure that our PPs, to make sure that some of our lower attainers in the groups are hanging on in there, or the Ha's aren't dominating overtly? 2 answers here and then we'll call an end. Yeah.
Well, so far they've gone from having their own opinion and a single piece of evidence.
Yeah.
So potentially biased piece.
Yeah.
So that's been quite accessible. So now they're being quite nicely presented with the other evidence.
Indeed.
And arguments.
Indeed.
Without having to be so challenged that it's too difficult for them to do it.
It's subtly done. Can they cope with it? Do they appear to be coping with it? I think they do, yeah. Yeah, your points. Yeah.
I enjoyed, just as a strategy, the idea of initialing the points that came from different students, because it just puts the onus on students that might not make a point and wait for others to make points to actually have one.
Excellent point, and it would be really interesting to see how many initials we've collected. But my impression is, through the general conversation, we're collecting a fair range. The scribes, by the way, predominantly are the high attainers. You know, so that I guess it doesn't get in the way of thinking, talking, speaking for perhaps some of our less confident young people. Ladies and gentlemen, let's stop there in terms of the learning experience. We haven't really discussed an awful lot of bells and whistles in terms of, you know, access and challenge strategies. Take the latest point over here. I think what we've seen to date is a fairly typical, accessible, everyday scenario that's been, I think, quite successful in terms of retaining interest, motivation, curiosity, and retaining buy-in. Let's have a see how successful Mark is in terms of coaching our teacher through that learning experience.
Just before I grab Amy then, what I would just like to do is very quickly, if it's possible, to get just a couple of your thoughts as to the 2 or 3 things we want Amy to take away from the feedback, because I'm aware that we're going to have around about 10 minutes tops for me to feed back to Amy and to hear Andy's comments. about that. So what are the kind of things that we want Amy to be taking away? Her request is to focus on differentiation, how she's achieved that, what's been successful, what we want her to carry on and to take forward into her practice, but also where we might possibly offer some suggestions or allow her to the space to think of other ways in which she can offer that evenness and that equality of opportunity. Yes? Okay.
I'm interested if she does that.
So that might be a question to ask, to sort of tease that out. Okay. Any other thoughts of things that we really wanted to take away to validate that experience for her as to what was effective, what worked? Yeah.
I think that her incremental approach to setting tasks was a strength.
Okay.
That was a good thing.
Yeah.
I felt like towards the end there was a small opportunity perhaps for the questioning when they all had their own opinions and decided on each table to kind of very much bounced around each other rather than being kind of back and forth of answers and kind of just step out and almost let them debate. Might have been an idea. But
Okay. Yeah.
Would there be value in actually taking out the yellow group, the green group, develop our ideas within that those particular scenarios, and then we'll put them back in, but you've had an opportunity to see within those areas together are they developing confidence and voice.
So give them the chance away from maybe some of the louder voices.
Yeah.
Okay. And what, I suppose, my final thing before we move on, what's the overall feeling we want to leave Amy with as she leaves the feedback? Yes?
Great relationship.
So, a real positive oomph to carry on that good practice outside. So we've got 2 more points I'm going to take and go.
Just kind of with that, knowing some of the students that are sat down, a fantastic relationship with Amy.
Built upon that really inclusive environment where ability doesn't seem to matter, they're all being stretched and pushed towards a similar goal.
Lovely.
Mark,
Like that
you've, got
phrase.
you've got about 10
Let's go.
seconds to formulate all of that.
That's fine. Yeah.
I'll go and get Amy.
This is like Parkinson in the 70s now. Really enjoyed that. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Take me through, first of all, your thoughts. You're talking about differentiation, that's
Yeah.
what I wanted me to look at. How was that for everybody? Was there an equality driven?
I think there was, because I tried to plan it so that differentiation isn't an obvious thing that happens in a lesson, because I think that would be quite embarrassing for students if they know, well, here's my special sheet, or this is what I've got to do that's different from everybody else. And in a way, I hope that you can see that it should look like there isn't any differentiation, but if you're watching properly, then there is. So my planning behind it was that everybody should be doing the same things, but my questioning or the way I've set up tasks or the way I have then gone around and spoken to individual people should be different, and hopefully that was part of what I was doing.
And how did that feel? How was that questioning? Did it elicit all that
I
differentiation?
felt like doing this, honestly feeling it, you just feel like you've got lots and lots of questions that you're going around and asking, but I was really impressed with what they came up with. So the kind of things I planned to ask them, they'd already gone past those things. They knew they could think quickly. So when I was going round, those questions kind of quite easy to come up with that were going to make them be challenged and make them think really carefully because of the quality of what they were saying in response.
And was there anyone then that you saw across the lesson that you thought, I wish I'd just given them that extra push?
Freya, who was sitting here, Freya's very capable, but because she struggles with her confidence, sometimes if you push her too far, then she won't be happy to answer anything else. So when I was asking her some questions, I was going in with easy questions first that I knew she'd be able to answer, and then trying to go a little bit further to get her to develop her ideas.
I think that was what I really enjoyed, was that incremental approach for everyone. It seemed to me that you took them from their stage and moved them forward. So that was really, really effective. Were the resources, were they differentiated as well?
Some of them they're all the same resources, everybody has those same things, but for Callum and Sean, they'd got resources that would be easier to be very straightforward in terms of finding facts.
Right.
But the same sheets were used with the table that were with Kira and I, this table here, who were all higher ability, but they used their facts in a different way. So Sean would be able to say, well, there's this much land, or this many sheep are going to be for sale, or the land is going to have this many sheep on it. Whereas with Kieran, he was talking about economic development and linking it to multiplier effect and things. So
And did that work then in your conversations with them? Was that teasing out what you wanted?
Because Callum still found it hard to find that information within there, so the challenge was picking out useful bits of information, whereas Kieran got it through quickly, or whatever information he had, but he could provide an extra argument that would go with it.
So you could see that stretch happening subtly.
Yeah, Kieran could get through what he was reading quickly, but then use it in a different way.
Okay. And I suppose that a question that I might like to ask is, did you feel, because obviously you gave the higher attainers, I suppose, that scribing job, when it came to them scribing, did it perhaps stop validating some of the lower attainers' opinions? So I was aware that over there, Callum, once Hannah was writing, sort of sat back, and it felt like, well, now the A standard student is writing, now my opinion doesn't matter as much. Do you feel that was the case?
A little bit, but when I'd gone and had a look, he'd got points that he'd put on his initial, so I could check who'd actually put their ideas forward. But I can completely see where you're coming from, because Hannah is an intimidating force. So she just gives him a look, and he knows that.
Yeah, he was quite quiet.
Yeah.
And so in order to make him feel that actually he could sort of put that forward and maybe carry us over here in the same way, are there any other ways you could have maybe?
Whether they could all pass around what they were going to do, that was one of the ideas I thought about, that they could pass that round, but sometimes they get a bit carried away with making it all about how beautiful their writing is, and not just can we get some points across in a short period of time. I think he really didn't have an opinion at the beginning. Callum was like, I just don't know. I just don't know. You need to come back to me. But by the end, he had an opinion that was based on facts. So it's a different journey from, say, Ammon, who always has an opinion and always takes on ideas quickly. But I felt that Callum had gone from no idea what his opinion was to be able to at least give facts and information, which for a D grade student is what we would need to be working on to go further.
Okay. And what would you say would be your key thing taking this lesson on board and the thoughts that we've just had? What would be the key thing to take forward next time? What's the things you're going to keep, two key things you're going to keep, and one thing that you're going to adapt or change or tweak?
I think the things I'd keep is the fact that some groups were mixed ability and some were just top ability students, so they can use their own ideas and push each other. Table with Philip, he will argue forever. So I used him purposefully because he will always bring a different argument. So I wanted to keep doing that. And also the fact that they had a starting point, so I knew where their views were. So if I didn't know that Callum had no idea at the beginning, I wouldn't have been able to push him, and I wouldn't have known where to take his questioning as he went through. Things changing things, a lot of it was very static, which wouldn't be in my normal classroom. But I didn't want them moving, but they would normally, that kind of element of going and swapping and changing and taking Sam to go and Ray to go and talk to another table so that other people can talk. I thought it would be a bit noisy and destructive.
So it was more an entire practicality, because that might have been an idea to take the yellow group over there.
And swap with what they were doing. So I'd do differently if I wasn't in this setting.
And with that, I suppose that would have helped them to take more ownership of their opinion.
Yeah, I think so, because they would have had to fight their own opinion. But normally then I would say, well, you've got to come back with something else from another person to show that balance. So then maybe Callum could have had someone different to talk to that isn't Hannah giving him the eye. Sort your answers out. Not that sort of giving him the eye.
That's right. They're not even here.
Yes.
And what about the relationship you have with them?
They're really from two different classes, and they've had to be mixed together here. I really enjoy having a good relationship with them, because in the classroom they're just exactly the same, and so they know that how far they can go before I will go, well, I know that's too far now. And I think it means that they're all on my side. So when I want to try out new things, or like this was a big thing for them to do, and they're like, yeah, of course, no problem. So I think for next year, when they're in year 11, they know they can trust me, and I'll push them as far as they need to go, really.
I think that's what was really lovely, and what translated incredibly well was that relationship you had with them. And even the control of Sean, and keeping Ray on side, and all of those things, it was really lovely to watch. It was really enjoyable. Sorry?
Sean thinks I bullied him.
Sean thinks you bullied him?
Whilst eating a piece of pizza, he was like, you bullied me.
For a full man.
Yeah.
But that in itself, isn't it, is really good. So do you feel positive about the experience of
massively,
doing this?
Yeah.
And feel that you're going to take that good practice and move it forward?
Yeah, because I was not as nervous about it as I thought I would be, and then when I just got started, it was just like being in my classroom, so it was all right.
And that's what I think that was the absolute thing that came across, was that you just at your ease with them, and they were able to make that progress for themselves.
I was impressed that they spoke so much and shared so many ideas, because it's quite intimidating for them, isn't it? So they were really happy. Okay, thank you very much.
Okay, thank you very much, Mark. Ladies and gentlemen, let's bring things to an end, but just one or two thoughts. I'd like to invite you to give me your thoughts as well, but that might just prolong proceedings, and it's a beautiful evening. I'm sure you've got homes to go to and things to do. So let me give you my thoughts about the feedback there. I mean, I just think, first of all, and maybe in terms of what Mike Claddingbole's been saying recently from Ofsted, and you'll have picked up one or two messages coming from Sir Myton, that in the next schedule, because there's going to be a next schedule and there's going to be changes, we're in an election year next year, maybe just we'll start, having inspections that are more constructively and developmentally orientated than number and measurement orientated. And so refreshing to have a conversation about pedagogy without any numbers being mentioned. We've got to start getting into that more in our schools, because we know what the numbers are, largely through the progress information, largely through the attainment data, largely through the residuals, and largely through children's work over time. When we go into lessons to look at experiences, we've really got to focus more and more and more on the effectiveness of those experiences and provide opportunities we've just seen. And there's a great opportunity for practitioners to be self-reflective. Have to say, haven't we got an excellent self-reflective practitioner in Amy? Not all teachers are like that. I guess, huge opportunities that Mark provided there for Amy to reflect on effectiveness. If I was to slightly criticise, and I think that's been a really, really positive conversation, probably 7 or 8 times out of 10, there'll need to be more steer from people like Mark in terms of, how effective was that? A little bit like we were discussing in terms of, sustaining interest, maintaining challenge, maintaining accessibility, etc., for all learners. So, great opportunity for Amy to reflect, some fabulous questions from Mark to open up that dialogue. Just looking for a little bit more reinforcement from Mark that says, yes, and in my opinion, that led to, or that resulted in terms of the interest challenge debate, not the measurement in terms of overall effectiveness and progress. I guess the only other thing that I would add is the word enjoy. I mean, again, being pernickety here, but I never really say that I enjoy anything these days unless it's been really effective. And so, bringing, I think words are so important it's not for us to enjoy experiences, but it is for us to comment on the effectiveness, which came out there. The bottom line in all of this, of course, ladies and gentlemen, in terms of sustaining interest, sustaining challenge, providing accessibility, is that we need practitioners in touch with learners, because routines, expectations, values, and relationships underpin everything, don't they? And I think to finish off with today, what Mark's brought out in that conversation and what we've seen through Amy is just those things. And to sum it all up, I think a teacher or teaching today that has been very much in touch with its audience and has thought very carefully without bringing all the bells and whistles out, in terms of how we're going to interest and challenge quite a dispersed group. And I think she's done that effectively. Amy, Mark, thank you very much indeed. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen.
I'm also part of a coaching team that's looking at how we bring coaching into our discussions of pedagogy in terms of developing feedback and developmental feedback with teachers after lessons, before lessons, in order that we can all keep moving forward and to make a discussion about teaching part of the agenda.
Okay, how do you feel the session went?
From Amy's point of view, I think the teacher who was delivering it, I think it went incredibly well. I think it was one of the first times I've seen a teacher really at ease, both with the students but also in front of the audience, completely unfazed. And it's that situation actually that meant that Amy behaved much as she would in a classroom, which meant that we could have a really honest discussion about the effectiveness of the different tools that she used with the students in order to move them forward.